Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So I come across this video on MattsFTR's page, and he was doing this interview with this kid, Joey, and then he brought my name up and stuff, right? So it's like, okay. But then they didn't actually talk about my story. They just laughed at me and said nothing, actually talked about nothing. They talked about me being a YouTuber, making fun of people, but never ever talked about any of my Michael Jackson story. None of the issues like, why does he believe this? Why does he actually say this stuff? And it's like, well, if he does say this, well, this is how you contradict that. It's contradicted to this. Like, I've got evidence to prove these lying. They don't ever do any of that stuff. They just say, no, John, you're wrong because I said you're wrong. Okay, it's like, and then they wonder why I yell at them and call them so stupid and fake fans and stuff. And it's like, well, dude, first of all, you're a fake fan. Because if you were a real Michael Jackson fan, you would have had to have done an investigation into the research I've done. Then if you had done a research into the investigation I've done, you'd be able to speak to me on a fucking proper terms. You'd be able to say, well, John, this is a point that you bring up like this. And because you'd be able to see the stuff that I'm talking. But you don't do that. Okay, so first of all, right there, I know you're a fake fan because you're not capable of bringing up a proper argument against the evidence and the story that I'm telling. You're not capable of doing that, so I know that you're a fake fan, okay? Then you guys are just stupid losers and shit because you're stupid fucking losers and shit, right? Because you're just like, oh my God. So we won't get into that. So just here real quick, let me show you here that they brought my name up.
An American Scheme. Oh, all right. We'll make this one quick.
Yeah, so that's all you need to know. Oh yeah, actually here, watch the one part. Show you, sure.
So if you don't know who An American Scheme,
hi, I'm John. My show,
American Scheme, where I'm proving Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother.
See, it's weird because they know, like verbatim, exactly the way I say, like how I introduce my videos and stuff, right? But they can't ever tell you anything that I talk about in my videos, except the videos where if I'm making fun of them, I'll watch that video, or if I'm making fun of another YouTuber. But they don't ever watch any of the Michael Jackson stuff. And it's like, wouldn't you watch one of my videos just so you could then laugh at me because of the stuff I'm saying in my video? But they don't do that. That's not what you're going to see from them, but that's the way it appears to be. And that's the way this whole community, it all comes off the same way, that somebody here has actually investigated what I'm doing, and somehow they've got the entitlement to just discredit me and think that they can laugh at me when none of them have ever done it. And the reason is because they're such fake fans and they're such stupid, pathetically weak, disgusting human beings as they actually are. What actually, when they see the evidence, I actually show them, and instead of like saying, okay, well, that makes sense. Let me see if this something else makes sense. Instead of opening the door and looking at it, they won't ever. They just shut the door and run away, and then they just yell at me for doing, and they tell me, don't do that anymore. They said, you scared me. Oh, when I opened the door and I looked in there, you scared me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop scaring me. And that's like how I get treated by these pathetic loser Michael Jackson fans in the Michael Jackson community. They're total losers. Like, they're fake fans, and they're really stupid, disgusting human beings as they are. So now this is, let me show you, like, people don't actually know. So here, I'm going to make a little video real quick to show you the core essence to the very beginning of, like, do I have evidence to even begin this, begin to allow this discussion to be able to take place? Do I even have that evidence to allow for it to start? That's the thing. So I'm going to show you the evidence here to show you that I do have the evidence, and it's hardcore evidence. And so my investigation all started with the understanding could, I just said that I had a thought. Could Diana Ross be Michael Jackson's actual mother? That's it. Okay? At that point, I don't have any idea about Smokey Robinson. I don't have an idea in my head about how Diana Ross, how old she is, like when this would have occurred. I have nothing. I have none of that information. Something had happened, and then I saw something, and I had enough information to know that Michael and Diana had a relationship and all this stuff. So I had enough information. So then I had enough that I asked the question, well, could Diana Ross? So then that started the investigation. So the first thing that happens, I go start the investigation. I find out that Diana Ross, at the time when she would have gotten pregnant with Michael Jackson, she's only like 13 years and 8 months old. You know, she's like 9 months, somewhere around there. Okay, but she's late in her 13s, but she's not even 14 years old yet. So right there off of the bat, boom, I got a fucking issue. It's like, oh shit. Well, could Diana Ross have been pregnant at 14 years old? So now, right off of the bat, what's the chances that I was going to find evidence of Diana Ross proclaiming to be in love with a man, and that she was sleeping in that man's house at the exact time when Michael Jackson's conceived? And Diana Ross is only 14. She's not even 14 years old yet, okay? So just think about the reality. When I went and searched for that first piece of information to find out that Diana Ross's age, how old she would have had to been. Now, if my story's not true, right? See, because I'm doing an investigation. If I'm doing an investigation to a story that is true, that means there's evidence there that exists because the story's true. And there's things that are going to exist there because the story's true. But if my story's not true, then those things would not exist. That's exactly how it works. Those things would not exist there. So when I show you here Diana Ross in the next video, I'm going to show you her on the Arsenio Hall show, and when she's telling you that she's in love with Smokey Robinson, and she tells you the time of which it's occurring. And I'm going to show you in the relation to this, and I'm going to show you exactly that means that that time of what she's talking about is that's the perfect actual relation, a correlation to when Michael Jackson would have been conceived. This is actual facts. Like what I'm saying is, I didn't know I was going to find that stuff. And like I said, what would be the chances that if it was not true, that when I went and looked to see if Diana Ross could be Michael Jackson's mother, and I find out that Diana Ross is only 14 years old, what is the chances that I'm going to find evidence of Diana Ross explaining that she's sleeping in this other man's house when she's 14 years old and she's in love with him? Just think about the reality of that. It's like, that's what I'm saying. This evidence of what I have, it's so hardcore because I've been doing it so long that I know what I'm going to show you here is like, oh my God, evidence. It's hardcore shit. But these people, they can't even deal with allowing themselves to be able to look at and see it. And then when they see it, they just say, oh, well, that's nothing. And then they think that's all I've got. And it's like, no. Now I'll show you the next step. And I'll show you the evidence. I've got the next step. And I've got the next step. And I got it all the way up until Michael Jackson's dead. His whole fucking life. Evidence. The whole way. And now you'll see that once you start opening the door, you'll start seeing what all this stuff actually means and how the understanding of everything.
You know, I graduated from high school in June. And rather than me going to college in September.
Okay, so really quick, he's talking in 1957. And there's a thing like right here, he doesn't say 1957, but he leads up into the conversation where he's talking about meeting Berry Gordy. And if anybody really knows the real story, and if you know, I've got 10 other videos where he proclaims exactly that's 1957. But in this one, there was other stuff here, and I wanted to play this other stuff. So he doesn't say the year 57, but I've got it well documented. And it's well documented because he's talking about when he meets Berry Gordy. So that's well documented. That's occurring in 1957. And so that's what I'm going to tell you too. This is going to lead up to where he's talking about meeting Berry Gordy in August of 1957. Because right now he's led you up to September of September of 1957. This is right before he meets Berry Gordy. That's where this conversation's going. So now, just as a fact, Michael Jackson is born August 29th of 1958. Okay? So, if you go back in time, basically like 1 year to August, in August of 1957, what you find out is in August of 57, that's when Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy. Okay, they never even knew each other. They never had met before. So, Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson meet each other in August of 57. So, now this is just simple facts, okay? So, the reality of when Michael Jackson is conceived. Michael Jackson is conceived. This is just a fact. Okay? Now, even if he was conceived by Joe Jackson, it's just a fact. Michael Jackson's conceived a few months after Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy. Okay, that's a fact. I'm just trying to establish with people because they can't understand what actual facts are. So I'm trying to establish to you the simplest basic facts to show you that if my story's true, I have to have this first basic thing to prove. If I can't prove this, how can I actually prove anything? But I was able to prove this, and that's why I'm saying I actually do have the facts and I can prove this stuff because I was able even to prove this stuff. Okay, so right here, what we're leading up to is, like I said, Smokey's talking about, he's thinking about going to college in September of August of 57, but then he's going to meet Berry Gordy. But here's the other thing that's super important. He's going to tell you about his living arrangement at home, and I'll let him tell you right here.
I was raised by my oldest sister. When I was born, my oldest sister was 17 and my youngest sister was 14. Okay, so his sisters that are older than him, one of them's 14 years older and one of them's 17 years older. I had two siblings, just my sisters. And so my mom passed when I was 10.
Okay, so then when Smokey's 10 years old, his mom dies. Okay, so his sisters now would be, because that's 10 years more, so his oldest sister would be 27, his other one would be 24. So I think he's talking about the sister when he brings it up, because he doesn't say which one, but I think he's talking about the oldest one, the 27-year-old, you know. I could go clarify that somewhere, I'd have to find it, but I'm not certain about that technically right here, you know, because but whatever, that's not that important stuff. The main thing is his sister, okay, so that's what and now he's going to tell you.
And then my oldest sister, who had 6 kids at that time, man.
Okay, see, he said his oldest sister. See, he clarified it. So it's the one. The one sister was 17 years older than him. So when Smokey Robinson's mother died, his oldest sister's 27 years old. Okay? And she has, at that time, she's already got 6 kids. Okay? And Smokey's only 10. She's got 6 kids. So you can see how her kids would have been right around that age, around to Smoke, just under Smoke. Like, it would have been more like Smokey was their big brother and then all the other kids, right? So that's the living arrangement. His sister moved back. So from the age of 10 years old, Smokey didn't have a parent in the house. His mother's dead. His oldest sister's raising him with all of her children. That's the living arrangement of which Smokey's living, okay?
Came back to live in the house and raised me as my mom. So I was raised by her, and she had 6 kids. She ended up having 10 kids, so there were 11 of us. So I always had a job, man. I always had a job. From the time I was 10 or 11 years old, I always had a job doing something. Delivering groceries, paperboy, shiny shoes, you know, that kind of stuff. So when I graduated from high school, I was actually working for Western Union. I was delivering telegrams on a bicycle. And so I wanted to wait and save my money up so that I could buy me some clothes to go to college and my books and stuff like that. So I wasn't going to go until January. Just so happens that the Miracles and I got a chance to go audition for Jackie Wilson's managers in August.
See right there, in August. Okay, so right there, he was planning in January. See, he hasn't met Berry Gordy yet. And in his eyes, he said right there, I'm working for Western Union, okay? And in January, I'm planning on going to college because I'm making some money so I can get some books and some clothes. I'm gonna go to college. That's his real life. He has not met Berry Gordy yet. Okay, so then he says right there, so then in August, okay, this is where he's leading you up to. This is where he meets Berry Gordy. This is in August of 1957.
And that was big to me because Jackie Wilson was my #1 singing idol at that time, you know, and he was from Detroit. And so we went there, and rather than singing songs that were currently popular by other artists to audition with, we decided we were going to sing these 5 songs that I had written, thinking that if we do this, they're going to say, hey, these kids got their own material. It's a rap. That we love them, you know.
Yeah, great idea.
They didn't like us at all. You know, we were 4 guys with a girl in the group. I sang high, and at the time, the Platters were the #1 group in the world, and they had Zola Taylor singing with them, who was a girl, and Tony, who was the lead singer, had a high voice, you know. So they told us, they said, you guys will never make it.
So one thing I want to point out to you really quick right there too is that, see right there, he's talking about doing the audition, and his future wife, who's Claudette, okay, so right there he told you, like, the people are turning him down because they're saying that you and Claudette resemble the Platters. So what I'm showing you is that Claudette is present at this audition. Claudette she's in the band, okay, and she ends up, like, after this, you're talking about about a year and a half after this. So after, like, the audition, they get married, okay? They're actually married. So you got to look at the time frame of what he's saying. He's saying in August of 1957, Claudette, who ends up he marries her because she's still young at that time too. She's only like a year older than Diana Ross, okay? So Claudette's in the band. He marries her when she gets to be like 17, you know, and she wasn't even 18 when they married her, but she's closer, and he marries her. But they had been dating all that time too. And because I have another thing about where Berry Gordy actually called up Claudette after they did the audition. Berry Gordy called up Claudette and asked her out on a date, and she said, "No, I can't go on a date with you because I'm involved in a relationship with Smokey." So I know that the relationship with her and Smokey was right at the beginning. They were involved in a relationship. So it's a big deal to hear that, because you need to understand the situation of what I'm saying, of what is occurring and how it happened, okay? So we've set up here now, we've got that So you understand that Smokey's mom passed away. He's living in a house with his older sister who's got all these children, okay, that he's living in. That's the living arrangement. That Smokey's planning on going to college, but right before that he does an audition at Brunswick Studio where Berry Gordy happens to be present, and the Brunswick turns him down, but Berry Gordy goes after him. That's how they meet. That's what they're explaining here.
Because, we already got the Platters. So we don't need another group like that, so you will never make it. They told me and Claudette, who is was my first wife, we weren't married at the time, we were teenagers, told her and me that we should go and just sing with each other like Mickey and Sylvia. Because they had a Love is Strange, a big, huge record. And they said, if you want to be different, you guys should just... So we were rejected. And Berry Gordy was writing all of the hit songs for Jackie Wilson at that time. He just happened to be at that audition. I always tell people it was a God day, because he didn't have to be there that day. Right. And we didn't have to go on the day when he was going to be there. You know what I mean? I always tell people that was a God day.
So, yeah, that's the thing, that the God day. And that's the other thing. So, now Smokey Robinson, this far later in life, when he talks about that day about meeting Berry Gordy, he refers to that as a God day. So he's saying that in his life, he's talking about one of the most significant days in my whole life was that day of which I met Berry Gordy. And he said it was so significant in which way he says that I place the blame on that from God. Because of the things that spawned because of all of that stuff and the things that occurred because of all of that. He says he puts the blame on that of God. So that's the other thing of what I'm showing you is that day, because now this is what people don't understand. When he's talking about that at God day, they don't understand that leads up to the Michael Jackson thing and all of this stuff, which is the stuff that nobody knows about. Okay? But all of that stuff had to have occurred. All of it starts with Smokey meeting Berry in August of 57. Okay, so now when Smokey meets Berry Gordy in August of 57, now Smokey Robinson, it's just a fact, he has legitimately made a connection to a music connection to Berry Gordy, because Berry Gordy is the songwriter, the hits, he's writing the hits for Jackie Wilson. Berry Gordy is legitimate. He's not Motown. There is no Motown. This stuff has not happened yet. But Berry Gordy is legitimate, so that puts Smokey Robinson in a position with a legitimate guy, and they're going to start building a record company together in August of 57. That's where it all starts, okay? That's the facts, okay? We know those are the facts. So now, this is Diana Ross, and Arsenio's going to talk about her first love. And now, what I want you to understand is, like, Smokey Robinson said, oh, well, I wasn't married with Claudette. We were teenagers when this occurred, okay? But the reality is he is dating her. And like he said, we weren't married, we were teenagers. So the reality is, what I want to show you about what they're saying is, so in August of 57, Diana Ross is only 13 years and like 8 months old, somewhere around there. She's probably like 13 and a half months right there. Probably about 13 and a half. Okay, so at that time, she's young. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. When Smokey's saying, oh, well, I wasn't married to Claudette, we were young, right? So then, okay, well, Diana's even younger. Okay, but Smokey is dating Claudette, and Claudette is in The Miracles, okay? So the girl that's got the best connection to Smokey Robinson in reality is Claudette. She's dating Smokey Robinson, and she's in his band. Okay, so that's Smokey Robinson's number one girl, and that's right at that time. They told you it's August of 57. We're setting it up in the time, and when you think about the reality, right? So that's the time when Smokey meets Berry. So now for Diana Ross to be in love with Smokey Robinson at that time in her life, now let's listen to the way she talks about it and stuff. And now let's think about the reality of what she's actually saying, and listen what she actually says here.
But who was your first love, though? Yeah, who was that?
You mean,
that
are you
first guy
talking
you
about
kissed?
man? Are you talking about man love?
Oh, yeah, I should have specified that. I'm sorry.
Smokey Robinson was my first love. I really loved him.
Okay, Smokey Robinson was my first love. I really loved him. Okay, and she already said, oh, you're talking about man love. So this is like a real love. And so where does she go? She goes to Smokey, and she says, Smokey Robinson was my first love. I really loved him. But now we can look back in time, and we know that in August of 57, Smokey's already dating Claudette at that time. And not only is he dating her, she's in his band. And not only is she in his band, a year and a half later, they actually get married. That's the situation about what she's talking about right here. So this love that Diana Ross is talking about is taking place right at the time about when Smokey's in the band with Claudette and stuff. Because she pins down the dates of that right here. Listen.
People think my life or my career started with Motown, but really it started with Smokey.
But really it started with Smokey. They think it started with Motown, but no, it started with Smokey. It's all about Smokey.
Smokey lived on Belmont. We lived on the same street.
Okay, so this part right she's going to tell you right here, this is the part that's like, oh my God, when you actually understand what she's saying, because people, it's like you really need to hear. It's like one of these things you have to hear it 100 times to actually grasp. Oh my God, did you hear what she just said? Listen.
I was very close with his cousin Sharon Burston, and I used to sleep over. You know how kids have sleepovers at Sharon's house, and I used to listen to the Miracles sing in the basement, and that was before I came to Motown. That was before the Supremes.
Okay, so that's before I came to Motown. That's before the Supremes. What she just said there is she says, I was really good friends with Smokey's cousin Sharon. It's actually Smokey's niece. Like I was showing you in the other video where Smokey's explaining that he was raised after his mother passed away when he was 10, that his oldest sister raised him and she had a lot of kids. So what she's talking about here is, see, like I'm saying, I've got the evidence and I understand now what they're actually saying. What happens is Smokey was in that house. That was the house that Smokey lived in with his older sister who raised him, and he had his nieces and nephews, okay? So one of those kids is named Sharon Burston. So one of Smokey's nieces named Sharon is really good friends with Diana, okay? This is what people don't know. When they talk about Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross's relationship, they always say, yeah, well, they lived on the same street. Yeah, I've known her forever. The thing that they don't talk about is that Diana Ross is best friends with one of Smokey's nieces. And what Diana just told you is that Diana would sleep over at her niece at Sharon's house. And she just says, we would listen to the Miracles play down in the basement. Okay? So she just told you that on nights where she was sleeping the night over at her friend Sharon's house, she was literally sleeping the night in that house, and Smokey Robinson's in that house too. And he's down there with the band. And she's in love with him. And listen, she's in love with him.
And to me, I loved him. Because there was a time...
Okay, so right, and I loved him. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not making this up. What she's talking about here, and what you'll find is the actual dates, because now here's where she pins down the actual date when she specifies, because first of all she tells you it's before the Motown, before the Supremes, but let's get real specific right here.
Where when I first heard his record on the radio and I realized that you might be able to sing and make a record.
Okay, so his very, very first song, it's Got a Job. It was there's a song called Get a Job that was a hit. He made a song to that called Got a Job, like Got a Job. And then that song got released, it's in 58, January, February, it's around February, I think it's in February of 58, that song gets released, okay? So right here, when she's saying, I realized you can make a song and it's on the radio, and I realized that you could actually do this, okay? So that's in February of 58, okay? So now, in the reality of the real world, and like what I'm saying is that in the real world, she's telling you she's in love with Smokey Robinson at this time in life. And what happens at this time in life when you just match up the date, Michael Jackson's actually conceived right at this time, okay? So now, when I went to look for Diana Ross to find out if she could be Michael Jackson's mother, and I find out she's like 14 years old, right? What was going to be the chances that I was going to find a video about her explaining basically how she got pregnant, that she's in love with Smokey Robinson, because she's telling you right there too. is when he made his record. So like what I'm saying is that the motive and all this stuff starts is right after Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy in August of 57. Just like she says, I realized you could actually make a record and it would be on the radio, okay? And then what happens is, so then right after that, a month after that, that's when she changes schools on her 14th birthday of March 26th of 1958. That's when Diana Ross changes schools and enlists into Cass Tech. And here's the thing too, is I'm not going to show you this piece of evidence, but I've got it. You'll hear Diana Ross 100 times saying, oh, I went to Cass Tech and I was studying fashion design. That's all she ever says. But my story, because of my story, I said no. That when she goes to that school, it's still too early in the conspiracy stuff about the Michael stuff. It's just developing. And when she enlists into the school, I said that no, she would not have been enlisting to study fashion at that time. She just would have been enlisting to study like sewing. I was saying because she was saying the fashion was, I was saying no, that was a cover, because what she was learning is like, I was saying like home economics, sewing skills. It was like skill, and then I've got her on another video where she says, oh, I went to Cass Tech and I was learning fashion, but she says, oh, but not when I first went. It was home economics. That's what she actually says, proving my point to be valid. That when she enlisted in the school, she was not. They didn't know what was going on. She doesn't know about the fashion stuff. She's just enlisting in the school because first she's got to change schools because she's going to be pregnant and shit, right? So there's an issue. So she changes schools, and what she actually enrolls to study at that school when she first enlists is home economics, and I've got it documented. All of this shit's proven. So now, at the time when Michael Jackson is conceived in the world, okay? Just look at the reality. Did I prove to you at the time of when Michael Jackson is conceived in the world that Diana Ross has a motive to get pregnant by Smokey because Smokey has a girlfriend? Okay, so she can't be Smokey's girlfriend, okay, but Claudette's in the band. At nighttime, Claudette would go home. Claudette would not be sleeping in Smokey's house. She's still just 15, okay? But so when Claudette went home, Diana Ross is sleeping in that house. That's a fact. And not only is she sleeping in the house, she's proclaiming later in life, much later in life, when she goes back and she proclaims who her first love to be, she proclaims it to be about that moment in time in history, and that Smokey Robinson is her actual first real love. Okay? And that's when it's like, okay, so well, Smokey's the daddy. Then that's how you realize how everything happened, is that. And then it's the timing of it. It's that Smokey got Diana Ross pregnant right after Smokey started hooking up with Berry Gordy. So then Berry Gordy, when Diana becomes pregnant, Berry Gordy realizes, oh shoot, I'm here working with Smokey. We're trying to build a record company together. But now Smokey's going to be an 18-year-old guy with a kid from a 14-year-old girl right in the neighborhood. So Berry's trying to build a company. He's not going to build his whole company, which ends up becoming Motown. You know, this is what they're on the verge of. He's not going to build his whole company around his number one artist, because people don't know that Motown was built around Smokey Robinson and the meeting of Smokey and Berry. That's how Motown, the whole thing happened. So a lot of people don't actually know that. So it's like the reality. Do you think Berry Gordy would have built his company at that time with Smokey Robinson if Diana Ross was 14 years old and having Smokey Robinson's kid in that neighborhood? Just think about the reality. What would that have done to the process of developing that record company for Berry Gordy? What would have happened? Well, I don't have to ask what would have happened, because I know what would happen, because Michael ended up in the Jacksons' house. So I know what happened is that they came up with the plan, because then through the research, I find out that Berry Gordy and Joe Jackson are the same age. When you go back and look in history, at the same time, you find out that they're both boxing in the Golden Gloves at the same time. Then right after that, they get into the music industry. Then you find out that they've got a lot of music connections similar. And then that's how you find out that that's what enabled for Michael to be given to that family. That's how he ended up there. He was given to that family. Then you'll see that when he's given to there, you'll see that everything in the Jacksons, Joseph's working at the steel mill. All of those years when all those kids are there, Joseph's got all these kids, right? He's working at the steel mill all the year. Then what happens as soon as when Michael gets born, what happens? Joe stops working at the steel mill. He's now going to become a star. He's going to go on the road with his band. But then his band didn't make it, so then he starts the kids' band. That's how everything starts and how everything occurs. It's all documented throughout time. I've got it all documented with the real facts, all of the real evidence. There's nothing that I can't prove. But these people think they come to me and they say you're wrong because I say you're wrong, and they think I'm supposed to accept it. They're going to say you're wrong because Katherine Jackson says in Wikipedia, and they think that they're facts. And it's like, you're okay. If I'm wrong, prove to me that at the time in which Michael Jackson's conceived in this world, prove to me that Diana Ross is not in love with Smokey Robinson at that time, that she doesn't have a motive to get pregnant by him because she's trying to find her way, because she can't be Smokey's girlfriend. So what can she do? Okay, what can she do in the real world? She can have sex with him, and then she can have the kid, because she can't be his girlfriend. That's why she offers the vagina, and she gets the kid. That's how all of that shit happened. And then you see that that's how then their lives become intertwined as their process and their development all through Motown. How with Smokey and Berry, Diana Ross ends up dating Berry Gordy, ends up having her first known child from Berry Gordy. All of this stuff fits in line perfectly with the story and the arrangements of the fucking story. What I'm saying. And I've got the evidence to back it up. Nobody's strong enough. The fans are too stupid and weak and they're not real fans. So either you got to be smart or you have to be a real fan. But like MattsFTR, he's totally stupid, and like the stupid kid there, the Joey, he's not a real Michael Jackson fan. So this is what I dealt with. I got stupid fake fans and stupid fake people, and that's why these stupid losers can't deal with any reality, and they just laugh at the real shit of what I do, because I'm the only one here doing anything that matters. You fake fucking losers are just slave loser nothings.